Alright, hello. Today we're going to be talking about the severe weather ongoing right now that is producing very large hail and sporadic damaging wind gusts, and the potential for a couple to potentially a few tornadoes tonight across Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and then southern Missouri. But currently, you're looking at the reflectivity screen of GR2 Analyst, and we have a supercell located west of Dallas-Fort Worth that is producing likely hail a little bit of an inch here. This is going to cross over some radar sites. As well, we have another supercell over here near Tainga. This thing did have very large hail earlier and tried producing a tornado. It got an outflow boundary kind of ingested into it, and it just couldn't quite do it. And now it's moving off northeast into a less favorable parameter space. There's more supercells producing 58 mile per hour wind gust at this station, so we have a severe wind gust at that station. And then if we look into the Oklahoma City radar, we have a couple supercells there in Oklahoma right now. Let me switch over to those. Um, we have a couple supercells there in Oklahoma right now, but other than that, right now, not too much going on. There's a lot of severe warnings though right now. But now we will switch over to my SPC tab. Let me just go. Or no, we'll switch over to a forecast sounding in Python or in Sharpie, which is ran by kind of Python. Um, I'm trying to figure out how to kind of draw on here because I don't have like anything right now that I can draw with on here. Um, I was gonna try to find a way to draw, but I don't have one. But basically, this sounding shows potential for large hail and damaging wind gusts. The tornado risk is low due to the fact that you have the sounding right here, right in there. There's a warm nose at 800, a little bit over around 800 millibars, and that warm nose is causing for there to be an excessive cap in the lower levels, which limits tornado potential. Now, that will not limit the tornado potential in areas like Oklahoma and Arkansas, as that area looks to be less capped later tonight. Let's go over to my tab on Google Chrome. Um, oh yeah. I was just opening some sounding fields here. We'll close all this, and we're going to mainly be talking about kind of the severe weather for the first part of this. But currently, we have a tornado watch in effect across portions of Arkansas. SPC saying a couple tornadoes possible, scattered gusts up to 70 likely, and hail up to 1.5 inches in diameter possible. Storms will quickly develop and develop northeastward across the region through the late evening into the early overnight hours. An increasingly moist air mass, along with significant strengthening of low-level wind fields, will support the possibility of a tornado alongside damaging winds and hail. Probabilities with this 40-20 for tornadoes, 60-20 for wind, and 40-20 for hail. So these probs, the wind probs are moderately high, the tornado probs are pretty normal for a setup like this, and the hail probs are pretty normal as well for a setup like this. Now, there's a severe thunderstorm watch also in effect across portions of Texas. Scattered large hail and isolated very large hail events up to 2 inches possible, a tornado or 2 possible, and scattered gusts up to 70 possible. Thunderstorms are expected to steadily intensify this evening from northern Texas into southeast Oklahoma. This will be as steady low-level moistening and modest destabilization occurs, advancing with a upper-level system. Damaging winds and large hail are the primary threats, although a tornado cannot be ruled out, particularly in areas near and east of I-35 and then far north quarter of Texas and southern Oklahoma. So now let's look at College of Dew page here. We're going to be looking at the RAP model for tonight. We'll look at the hodograph map that it shows. So here is tonight. We see this is we'll split it to this is around right now. Yeah, this is right now. Well, this is around right now at 3Z. Currently there is a pretty good environment up here if the RAP would be correct with on this in like Tulsa area. There's no soundings on the ASCAR, so I can't look on the air cars and the airports, but we are expecting a relatively favorable environment tonight for tornadoes across eastern Oklahoma. We'll take a sounding there at 9Z. We're likely going to see a QLCS evolved with this risk there. And yeah, definitely a little bit more favorable as we get into eastern Arkansas. Looking at the hodograph map, we see the hodographs are getting a lot more looped across this area. Very favorable hodographs for tornadic activity. Um, and yeah, this sounding definitely supports it. There is a bit of a warm nose, and it does thread the line of being elevated there at around 700 millibars. But given the fact that it is the morning, I would not be surprised to see tornadoes out of this, and maybe some large hail. Probably not large hail though, given that your hill growth area is pretty small and the instability axis is weak. But your hodograph is very solid. 400 S or H at 3 kilometers, you're going to get rotating storms off that, and 300 at 0 to 1 kilometer, that's going to give you more rotation. DKIPA 600 will also give you that potential. Now, as we get along here, we're going to go back a couple hours and we're going to take a sounding here. We'll take one in Little Rock, Arkansas area. We're going to take one in Springfield, Missouri. We're going to take one in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Let me just exit out of all of these here. And then we're also going to take one in, why not, Shreveport, Texas, or Shreveport, Louisiana. So here's the Little Rock profile. Very capped. This would probably be more of a wind and hail sounding, if anything. Maybe an isolated tornado if you can get a surface-ridged storm. This is the Tulsa sounding. This is relatively capped in the low levels, but you do have more surface-based profiles as it doesn't go over the blue dotted line as much. So I do think there could be an isolated tornado with this. I believe this is the Shreveport sounding. Oh no, that's probably the Tulsa sounding right here, and this is probably like the Springfield. That's Springfield, Missouri. So you can get a surface-based storm out of that. Tulsa, you're probably not going to get much of anything, and then you're not even going to get a storm down by Shreveport. If you go maybe into northern Arkansas up by like Mountainburg, a little bit in that area, there might be more of a risk of tornadoes over there. And yeah, maybe, but I don't really think so. There's also going to be a morning risk with the squall line out here in Kentucky and areas like that, and we can shift over to that sector now as we'll get over to Floater 2. A severe risk is expected to evolve across areas in Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky region in here, and also another area of tornadic activity in here. The greatest areas, in my opinion, with this one is probably going to be in here where you get the surface winds more backed, and then with the northern risk, we're going to see day of where the greatest risk is going to be. For the southern risk, you may see an enhanced risk get issued. Probably not, though, based off you're probably going to need like really good surface observations and a few sustained supercells. So I'm thinking you're probably going to see a slight risk maintained, more higher end one though. This is a sounding out of the Boot Heel of Missouri. We'll take one. This is 18Z. We'll take one in I think that's the Starkville, Columbus area in Mississippi. We'll take one near Bassfield, Mississippi, and then we'll also take one up in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And we'll go to 21Z and take more. So here's the sounding out of the Boot Heel, Missouri. Pretty solid hodograph. This is probably going to be a linear storm mode given that everything is perpendicular to the boundary and also everything is very unidirectional shear-wise. You have pretty strong lapse rates as well, which will be indicative of an isolated large hail threat. And then you have some marginal instability. So this is going to be a more marginal threat up here. There is a slight risk issued by the SPC for this event in both events. 5 wind, 15 wind for tomorrow, and 5 hail. I believe after this was the, I think Starkville, Mississippi sounding right here. This is very favorable, except you have a bit of a warm nose here at 18Z. It will likely erode, but that could be one of the problems that precludes convective initiation. We're also looking at the potential for more subtle forcing across that area, which could also limit stuff. Here's a sounding near Bassfield, Mississippi. Very good instability values, but rather weak shear as you get further south. The forcing is a lot weaker. And then I believe this is Jonesboro, Arkansas, and this is another area where you could see an isolated severe risk as well. Now here's 21Z. We're going to take a sounding up in near Louisville, Kentucky. We'll take one again near Starkville, Columbus, Mississippi. We'll take one here in the middle of Mississippi. We'll take one near Tuscaloosa and Birmingham, Alabama, and then we'll take one up by Tishomingo, Mississippi. So this is a very solid sounding here in Starkville. You see your EML has completely eroded at this point. very clear of everything. Very solid 3 cape of 100 plus. That's what's going to help drive the setup. And you have solid lap starts as well, which will give you a scattered hail threat. Here is the middle Mississippi one, I'm pretty sure. Again, very solid all around here. Not really anything warm nose wise. Very solid here. And then the Chisamingo sounding is very solid as well. So I do think you're probably going to get Storm Initiation. Your Mixler cape is anywhere from 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram. Your 3 kilometer cape is anywhere 50 to 150 to maybe even 200 in some spots as well. Your 850 millibar shear is pretty low, and there's gonna be subsidence that happens because the LLJ moves out of there. But since you have like the jet replacing everything from the southwest, you'll still have solid wind shear, but the height falls might not be there as you would like them to be. Your 500 millibar winds are going to be decreasing as you get throughout, or maybe increasing in some spots as you get throughout the day, as you get that more red streak to get in here, as very slow forcing happens. Let's transition into the ARW model, and then we'll probably be done here. This shows potential tonight with the QLCS and some supercells there. I'll just take one sounding there in southeast Oklahoma. A little bit contaminated, but you get the idea that some tornadoes are possible. Overnight tonight with the QLCS as well into northern Arkansas and southern Missouri, there's going to be potential for some tornadoes as well, given the fact that you have a large looping hodograph, strong wind shear, and you also have some decent 3 cape and solid lap rates for the time. Instability is going to be pretty marginal though, so you're going to have to keep an eye on that. Looks like a nasty QLCS develops with this new run with very significant energy helicity swaths. So if a solution like the ARW happens, we might see a 10 or not 10%, but a 30% wind added for places like Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, Southern Illinois. If a solution like this happens, pretty significant stuff here. I mean, that is some very significant updraft helicity swaths there. Um, Again, this environment gets a little bit worse as you get less instability. And then you see the confluence bands start to kind of pop off with some weak convection, and then we see a few supercells fire off a little bit after sunset there. The environment definitely supports tornadoes. It supports tornadoes a little bit earlier, and I think what happened with today is that most models day before struggled with initiation time. Day of, they got it a lot better, so I feel like we'll probably see initiation around 21, 22Z if the forcing is good enough, and if that does occur, you'll have a pretty significant tornado risk, with a few tornadoes being possible, maybe a stronger one if you get like a boundary-rooted storm or something like that. But as we get throughout the night here, we see the supercells kind of grow upscale into more of a embedded line as you get into northern Alabama. There will still be a tornado threat at this point, even though the instability lessens. So if you don't get initiation until around 0Z, you'll probably still get tornadoes. And then as you can see here, this squall kind of moves off to the east. Final look at energy helicity swaths throughout the run. They are pretty strong across this area. This is your semi-discrete mode. Here in blue is going to be your QLCS, more embedded supercell mode in here as well. So we'll have to watch out for that. If a solution like the ARW happens, you'll probably upgrade to enhance there. The NSSL is just a model that has not been very good this year, and overall isn't great and doesn't really do good with the convective kind of process. It has nothing forming at 0Z. It forms really late at night, so I wouldn't really buy that solution as well. But that will do it for the severe weather update for tomorrow. This is rather short because it is a school night, but I will see y'all in the next one.